Joining us for another segment is Mr. CL Bryant of the CL Bryant Show, weeknights 5:30 till 7:30 here on Keel. Commenting on, well, you tell us this. It's a seminar, it's a workshop, it's guilt-laden. I mean,
you can say what you want. It's called the Dialogue on Race, and I'm part of it. It's kind of an experimental group right now.
I'm not saying guilt-laden.
Right.
Louisiana's one of America's most staunch and well-known black conservatives is calling it guilt-laden.
It is, and let me say this to both of you: as long as we can continue the narrative of, as we were saying when we left, victimization, victimhood, as long as we have to keep.
Excuse me, Mister. Let me quote what you said again. When I asked Maxine to define racism, and she gave me about a 3.5-minute explanation, I said, "Can you do it in one sentence?" And what CL said was, that's not racism, that's victimhood. Pardon me, I just wanted to reset the table for you.
And it is, because slavery was an institution in this country. And let me define our country. Our country came into being as a declared country in 1776. 91, 2 years after it became a country, slavery no longer existed. It was abolished. Now, slavery was on the shores, on the continent for 300-400 years before then. But once America, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal, once those words were written by Thomas Jefferson, that endowment that we talk about, his endowment by our Creator with certain inalienable rights. Once he penned those words, he guaranteed the day would come when I, as a black man, if we have to speak in colors, would sit in Shreveport, Louisiana, the last city to concede defeat in the Civil War, as a free man, speaking to two white people, for the sake of conversation.
Sure.
In a free nation, able to accomplish anything that I want to accomplish. And oddly enough, Barack Obama is actually the antithesis of what Miss Maxine is talking about. He's actually the antithesis.
But things came up last night. One thing that bothers me, I left there troubled by a few things. One was there was a lot of comments about our education system and how many parishes have done end runs around this racism deal by creating these magnet schools and have created brain drains from the Booker T. Washingtons, the Fair Parks, and that is blatant racism. And we don't understand how we're still allowing it to happen, that all the African-American kids that are smart are going to these magnet schools now, and you leave the dumb African-American kids at their home schools.
Victimhood. Now,
really?
She has just turned those who remain back there victims and she's actually saying they're underachievers. She's saying that they can't compete with the other schools. Actually, if you would turn that scenario around and say, now let's make them just as good. And how do we accomplish that? Then you're actually dealing with the problem of inequity in Paris. And it's not racial. It's simply attitudinal.
But the powers that be are not making Booker T. Washington equal to Byrd or
Then
Shreve.
You deal with the powers that be, but not with the race of it. You see, you have to deal with the powers that be, because you've just identified the problem, and the problem is not race. You've just said it. The problem is the powers that we allow to exist, who created that situation, and that's not a racial situation. Tell you why. Because if it was, the same black kids who go to the magnet schools would still experience the inequity, and they're not.
But the kids that are left, they're just the dumb African-American kids.
And you want them to believe that because you're actually trying to continue an underclass that is wanting to.
Who wants to continue that? That's what I want to get.
Al Sharpton just delivered a directive to black pastors. Give you a case in point. Al Sharpton delivered a directive to black pastors.
Pardon me. I don't want to get way off track here. Let me ask you a more direct question.
Sure.
Sort of tied in with what Erin just said.
Sure.
And tied in with our previous guest. Erin said, who wants to maintain the status quo of telling black kids they can't achieve? Let me ask you in a direct way. Mm-hmm. We just talked with Maxine Crump. Mm-hmm. Is Maxine Crump part of the problem? Go ahead.
very well could be if, in fact, you buy into that narrative. Because, you see, there's a reason why you want to paint this picture of white privilege. See, I've visited Appalachia. I've been to Appalachia. I've seen very poor white folks who think that over the hill, the Rothschilds, or whatever their names might be over that hill, they are the ones with the privilege, and the ones who are in squalor are not. There are some people, if he was painted in a different light, would think Michael Jordan is the black man with privilege when the others are not. But unlike so many black kids in the ghetto who want to aspire to be Michael Jordan, in the scenario that is being painted here, those kids that they're saying in Booker, Washington or Fair Park, they can never break out because they're victims. You see, those kids on that basketball court there in the inner city, he's thinking in his mind that one day I'm going to be Jordan. But the scenario that they're painting in the minds of those kids who are left behind, as they want to tell them in Booker T. Washington and Fair Park, they're painting this scenario. You're there because of white privilege.
Are they trying to sell that scenario to Erin?
They're trying to sell that scenario to America.